topic is decision-making model for site selection and new development models for economy hotels. I need to breathe in between. Greenfield, conversion of existing buildings or part of a mixed-use development. We have no time left.
It's okay, the chairman is here. You can.
All right, thank you, Marc. So we're trying to, we're going to try and address a few concerns, challenges, issues across the board. And the panel we have is fairly diverse, ranging from Australia to India, with Indonesia and Singapore, Asia, Pacific thrown in between. On my immediate left is Kingsley Amose, right, representing Accor Technical Services. Marc, of course, everyone seems to know. If you didn't know him yesterday, you'll know him today. Simon, Chief Executive Officer for Staywell from Australia, and at the extreme left there is Prabhat Pani from Roots Corporation, India. All four of them put together, I think we're looking at about 100 years, give or take a few. So there's a lot of experience in there. But before we get to the panel, let's wake you guys up a little bit. It's a couple of sessions before lunch. How many people have ever gone out and bought a house? Ever gone out and bought a house? Oh, come on, guys. You can do better than that. All right. How many of you went to a house and felt it wasn't for you? Yeah. You walk into a house, the broker's doing his hard sell. This is the best building. It's new, great efficiency, fantastic facilities. But you walk in there and say, no, this is not for me. Right? You felt that? Yeah. How many times you walked into a fairly average sort of building and said, this is it. This is me. Not because it's average. Don't get me wrong. But you just get the right vibe. You connect with the brick and mortar, the space. Ever bought a house like that? Yeah? All right. How different is it for a hotel? Is it any different? You walk onto a site, you look at it, you say, nah, doesn't work. Yeah, you ever felt that? Marc?
Yeah, okay. Yes, some cases spontaneously. Yeah. Sometimes land is a bit more complicated, so you have to look around, and you cannot take just a decision like this. Could be more complex.
No, my question is different. My question is, we have people like ourselves who are consultants who will claim that we know quite a lot. We'll do feasibility studies, we'll do all sorts of IRRs and so on and so forth. But how many times do you walk onto a site and say, I don't care what the consultant says, this land is just right? No? You felt that, not felt that?
Exactly. It's, you get it, smell it. The rest after to justify, you need to do projection and all this. But number one, you feel it.
Simon?
Yeah, many times. I think it depends. Sometimes you really desperate and want a hotel in a certain location. Maybe your vision become a bit shorter. And sometimes you actually don't want a hotel in a certain location. The vision become a bit longer. You're a bit more, choosy in a sense. Yeah. So it happens, in a sense. So it does change the mind from time to time. When you look at something you don't want, you change your mind later on, or you try to enhance it and make it work for you.
What?
Oh, yes. Happens very often, and I guess it becomes a little bit difficult for the rest of the team, because once they sense that the key decision maker or makers are inclined, then I guess they get into the dilemma as to whether they need to make it work or whether it should work in absolute terms, and sometimes the other way around.
Right. So, easily, these guys go out and select sites, right, based on their nose, their gut, whatever it is, and then they come and give it to you, and they say, all right, now build a hotel which is efficient, which will work, right product, all that jazz. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think in our case it's a bit different because we do both. We buy and build and also manage.
Right.
We have 8 brands, right? at least one of them would fit well. So we always, we look at a site, you say, okay, TGFA, quick mental calculation. I'll say, okay, this one will get in right here.
Uh-huh.
So it's this 8 combination gives us a different kind of approach to any site. And we have a culture in our company. We never say no to a deal, right? We try to somehow make it happen. So hire us.
You never say no to the deal?
Well, it has to work financially, of course.
I don't think they've changed the philosophy, Marc.
Same, right?
Same. So, you have people like Kingsley, and I'm sure you have, enough technical guys on your team as well. Anytime you've actually gone and selected a site on the basis of gut and it's all gone wrong? Ever happened?
No, I think seldom for me. No. You will go by the gut first, and I don't want to be pretentious, but 90% you'll be right. Maybe like Simon mentioned, sometime my first feeling would be no, and then I need to be convinced and will come twice. But when I get right at the beginning, no.
So if you go out and say, this is the site for me, you've seen 90% of the times it...
Sometimes I need to convince the owner after, but if I'm convinced, I'm convinced.
Or maybe you work extra hard to make it work because you were convinced.
No, I think I need to be convinced for me. Even, we're also multi-brand and all this, but if I don't feel it, I won't go to it. For me, there's 2 factors very important. Get a feel on the land. I need to touch the land. It's very difficult for me to decide on paper. I need to visit the site. I need to feel it. It's like the land talk to you, That is number 1. And number 2 is the owner, like I mentioned yesterday. That is a second key factor. I can have a prime location, but I'm not feel confident with the owner. I put it back off. And maybe one day I get maybe not the prime location, okay? But the owner, I think I can really get a long-term partnership, then I will go for it. That is very important for me.
Simon?
I think the biggest challenge for me, and just looking back, all the sites that I've seen is, we all come from different countries and different cities. We might know a particular city where we live in very well. But when we go and, your technical guy, your development call you and say, great, come and have a look at this deal. It's fantastic. I've done it. I've done the terms. You get the top fees and so forth. And you rush in there, go to the airport to pick you up and wish you to the site, and you really don't know that city. And for the first half an hour, they try to tell you all the good thing about that site. And here you are sitting there, you look at it, and you don't know anything about that city. So the challenge is really try to understand, obviously, the basic orientation of the site. Secondary, you really need to understand the supply and demand, the traffic, the circulation of the city, and your competitors and so forth. So I think it is a process, as we all understand. Yes, we do have gut feeling when you look at a particular land and see whether the orientation is right, the surrounding is right, and so forth. But you still need to do your due diligence, like we all have gone through in a sense, and really try to understand at the end of the day whether meet your brand standard and getting the return on investment for your owners.
My comment to you is, if the owner is giving you top fee and your development guy is really excited, that's not a deal you should be doing.
Not working for Accor.
Prabhat, what about you?
I think,
but just going back to one question before we move on, Prabhat. Simon, you said, you got to go there, do your due diligence. You may not know the cities, the markets, so on and so forth. But even without all that, right? When, like Marc said, when you go onto the site, the land talks to you. I think it talks to a lot of people. A lot of people don't seem to listen, but it does talk to everybody. And, don't worry, this is not some Indian technique of yoga. It just, it's a natural connect that people have with land, right? But so if you get there, right, and if everything else seems to be right, but the gut's not right, then what do you do? Do you still dig further, try and convince yourself, or do you just say, no, thanks?
For me, if I don't have the guts, I would try to go a bit deeper inside. Why I don't have it? Because I need to justify to the owner. And if I get a really good point, I will honestly share my point with the owner. So I won't try to sell for selling the developments. And I would try to get different opinion, but I would tell and share straight away my opinion with the owner. Why I don't believe on it, okay? Why is the risk? Like I was mentioning to some owners, we go for, again, a partnership, not just the deal itself. You make an hotel or not. After behind, we go for management contract 10, 12 years, 15 years. So it's not just the deal, not the location. So I don't want to see my owner crying 5 years later. So it's very important for me to, if I'm not convinced, maybe the owner, to convince him not to do it or do it differently or different concepts. Okay? But I will still follow my own guts and not just for the sake of signing a deal. So I will try to convince the owner to do it different way.
Prabhat, you're coming from a market which is, where land is, I guess, more complicated than it is in most other countries or markets. You've bought a lot of your sites, you've leased some, so you're probably on this panel, along with Kingsley, you're probably one of the sort of owner operators. What is it that you look at? I mean, besides the title and so on and so forth. So,
Sure. As you rightly said, I'm really speaking as the owner operator here of the 27 cities or 27 hotels that we operate. 25 of them are actually owned and operated by us. There are only 2 which are management contracts.
right.
In our case, because we've been around the last 6 years, we have a fairly well identified set of locations that we go behind. And we ensure that we don't get tempted. I mean, there could be a very odd one which may happen. And somebody's really got to do a very hard sell to get that onto the map. Otherwise, the idea is that there are about, let's say, 50 to 60 locations that we are keen on. And it could even be 8 or 10 locations within one of the largest cities. And we stick to those. And it helps that there are members in the team who know this geography reasonably well. I'm not a born hotelier. I used to be in the FMCG business and I used to be in the telecom business. So there's about 3/4 of the country which I have personally traveled to in great detail. Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 towns. In fact, the first big hurdle that my team has is to convince me that this is a recent development which has happened in the last 5 years and possibly you're not familiar. So let's convince you that this location is worth looking at. So I think it is having passed through this filtration process, then it's a question of going and getting a sense and the feel of the exact location that we talked about. So in the first instance, I would say a lot of processing has already happened to identify maybe specific localities, specific streets that we'd like to get to. And by and large, we stick to those 50, 60 locations that we have identified. And then go through both the intuitive part, which you referred to, as well as the more organized part about doing a proper demand analysis, computation, projected supply, attractiveness going forward, etc., etc.
And Kingsley, when your team sort of goes out, your deal makers, when they go out and look at, I know you've got 8 brands. We've heard that, we've understood that.
Okay.
But from a, considering we're in an economy hotels world conference, with your restricted basket of economy stroke budget hotels, are you guys involved in before the deal is done, or?
Yeah, heavily. Actually, this is a large question, actually. If it is owner-operated...
We've got about 30 minutes. So.
See, if we are looking as an owner and operator, we have a different yardstick. Say, cost, location, and size, right? Which is the key. And you have to make sure that it gets you the right return. So we work really hard to put the right brand on the right location. And the land cost plays a huge impact. If you take Singapore and Hong Kong, 70% of the land cost is your project cost.
If
so
it's Mumbai, it's 90.
Yeah, Mumbai is 50, 60, yeah.
90.
So basically you change your design to adapt the land cost.
Right.
So if you ask me, the first step is you look at a land. We all want the best location. Then you look at the planning controls of that site, because very often people make a mistake. Like you bid for a land in Singapore, you have to give way for MRT air duct, you have to give pedestrian access, you have covered walkway, you have public domain. In Australia, for example, they'll say sunshade factor. You can't go above a certain height. You have to be very smart in analyzing as an owner what exactly you can get out of that site, the GFA, and the number of rooms. And then you work with the land cost and construction cost then come to decisions. But if it is the other way around, say a management contract, right? The owner has his own real estate objective. He may have a cost of capital which is much less. So we don't know all that information. So what we do is, if an owner says that this is a space we give you, you guys look at the market, you guys tell us what is the best brand that'll fit. So we work completely differently using a design exercise to deliver the best value for the owner.
It's
So
such a pity. I thought you'll come to us.
the problem is we have a huge team we are paying for it. So, that's why it's two different animal owner operator and just management contract. Totally different way of looking at things.
Okay, so we've got some time left for the rest of this discussion. Are you going to wear the owner operator hat or are you going to wear the operator hat?
I'm going to wear both because we have heavy investment in some part of the world, and we also have heavy operational involvement. So it's both. Yeah.
Maybe I will have something. In our case, okay, even though we have a few brands, much less, but we own some hotel, like I mentioned yesterday. We on the budget hotel, on the pop hotel, we have created an investment company and we develop and we invest. But when I see an owner, operator or investor, for me, I won't make the difference. And even before we invest, any owners I will see like it is my own land, my own hotel. I try always to look, and I learned from my previous company, also to look as an owner side, more than just an operator. And I think the reading is a bit different. So yes, like you mentioned, sometimes the owner won't say everything. He won't disclose all the other agenda. But as much as I can, I will try to know all the other agenda of the owner and really give from the end until the end what really I believe for the land, like it was my own hotel. I think that is very important, this commitment, even if it's just management agreement behind. But I will try as much as I can to give the same feedback if it was my own or it was their hotel. That is very important for me.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, you don't want to make the distinction between being an owner and or an operator. And I'm sure, all of you think of the site from a return on investment perspective, title perspective, best brand fit perspective. So for example, if Prabhat comes across a site which doesn't sort of fit the Ginger brand, maybe he passes it on to his parent company. I don't know. Of course, they don't invest anymore. As a philosophy, they want to grow through the management contract route.
They do a few.
Few. Okay. The problem seems to be that a lot of times when we go out, how many owners here? Any owners in the room right now? Okay. So no offense meant to any of you, but a lot of times, right, we'll all go in and say, we think this is ideal, but the owner just has something different in their mind, right? And that could come through a whole host of reasons. Why they want to build a hotel, what their funding sources are, how expensive or inexpensive they are, long-term objective, family, business, whatever it may be. How do you deal with that? So do you walk in there and say, I think this is what it is? If you really want to make money, you should build a budget hotel. If you don't want to make money, you can build whatever you want. And at the end of it, I can only run and operate an X kind of hotel. So do you walk away from an opportunity if it doesn't fit your, sort of framework?
I think you have to. I think at the end of the day, I think we listened to James this morning talking about building a brand and building a partnership with owners.
Uh-huh.
I think people like us, like me as well, we're owner and operator as well.
Yeah.
So it is a long-term game. This is not exactly something we want to make money and get away in 2 days' time.
Right.
I think, if you want to have a long-term relationship and a successful relationship with an owner, and you need to be honest with him from day one. And I totally agree with Marc in a sense. And we've done a lot of development and, this here and everybody out there and so forth. Sure, you can tell me all the good things about that site. And you should also at the same time share with him, maybe you don't say it's a problem, maybe you can tell me challenges in a sense, the challenge that we need to overcome in a sense. And if it doesn't work, I think you need to prepare to walk away. one door closes, another one open. You can't do all the deals. Someone else might be able to do a better deal in a sense for you, but it might not suit your brand. It might not suit your objective at the time. So I think for most brand operators, I think we're all pretty professional in a sense. I think we need to prepare to walk away if that doesn't really suit you in the long term, because getting divorced sometimes, as we all know in business relationship, is very painful. It's better us to be honest and upfront, and work through the challenges.
I thought it wasn't just in a business relationship. No, but I mean, sorry, Marc, but just from Prabhat's perspective, for example, it's fairly easy, right? He is one brand. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And he moves on. But, with folks like you who have multiple brands, there's always this temptation to try and squeeze it in between. Can we do an upscale Novotel? Can we do lower mid Mercure? No offense meant, but as you grow, Marc, with pop, for example, you will get tempted to create a slightly upper end pop, right?
No way.
Well,
no way. I will try to stick as much. I will get a temptation maybe to use another brand. Okay, so we have Aris and Biscay. We will launch a new brand very soon in 1 month.
Right.
I might have a temptation to use another brand because, I might have this temptation, but nevertheless, at the end, I need to believe on it. So if it's not a pop, it's not the new brand because it's more economic. Okay, there's not big gap, but I will fight for it. I don't want to make a pop plus or pop minus. It's a big challenge. Sometimes I have to fight with owners, but he has to be consistent. That is something I really share with Jim Stewart. We have to be consistent. Aris, we fight also to get a maximum consistency. Is very important. You pay back long term. You might lose some deal, okay, but it doesn't matter. You have to think on long terms. I would like to add one point on Simon. Yes, we have to be prepared to do some deals. I think it's very important. I go back to the quality and the relation with the owners. Sometimes I'm not be on 100% online with the owner, because in Indonesia there is many owners with the first time development, maybe lack of experience, they moving into the trend. That we have to be a bit of flexibility. And in that case, number one, I come back again, the quality of the relation is a partnership. Okay? And it's happened, I accept some deal in Indonesia. Maybe the first hotel is not going to be perfect according to what I want, but I think I have the right partners. And the next hotel will be better and better. And we're building with him a good brand in the country. So sometimes you need a bit of flexibility according to the person, if really you have a close relation. Again, I repeat, it's the most important. So I might have some Aris, maybe the first one was not perfect, but the owner get the point of the concept. And the first one to support my brand is the owner. Is my ally, okay? So if he get a concept, he's the first one we find to any other hotel to make sure it's consistent. So the first one, he might not get it, but if he's close relation, the next hotel we make another one, because I want to develop a loyalty with the owners in terms of brand development.
Kingsley?
No,
again, no offense meant there, but the point was that I think over the years, the larger brands or the bigger management companies have created multiple brands to try and capture as much of the market as possible across various segments. So, my point is some of the sort of more independent management operators may get tempted to create new ones and fit in or fill in those gaps. Is that what you see? We've just seen the Ibis.
I think for us, you see, if you take just the Ibis itself as an example, the room size in Tokyo could be 30% smaller. The room size in Hong Kong could be 25% smaller. When it comes to India, Southeast Asia, it's almost a constant. So I think the international brands within their brand standards are able to adapt within a framework and get the best yield for the owner. In the end, whatever we say, the owner is interested in his yield, IRR, return on capital employed, and so on and so forth. So we are all basically helping an owner to maximize his yield. So you go into a location, you do what is best for the owner. Like if I'm the owner, I do the same, right? So
sure.
I won't go and say, this is 18, take it or leave it. Then there's no deal, right? So you adapt. And there are tricky situations where you have a situation mainly of existing hotels, which doesn't fit into your brand experience. That's exactly where we try to create brand identifiers and try to convince the owner, okay, you have this size and this amount of public areas, but we'd like to have an experience of our brand. And more often we are successful in working in that spectrum.
I think it was Marc who said yesterday on a panel to say that if you actually refurb an existing hotel, was it you, Marc? It's more painful to refurb an existing hotel
I
than
say
build.
for budget hotel, even more than economic hotel, so I make the difference. On the budget hotel, it's so standardized, prefix. If you take an existing building, we have one case in Indonesia, we take it, but sometimes it's much more headache. Okay, so on budget hotel, it's better to be greenfield straight away. So to take over, we might have it, maybe in the future. But I know cost-wise, sometimes it looks cheaper, but it might take more money. But it's dependent country. In Indonesia, I would say 95% will be brand new hotel. But I believe a country like Malaysia, there will be a lot of opportunity to take over existing buildings, so we have to deal with it. So, but sometimes it's not so as cost effective, but you have to deal with it.
Yeah,
on the budget.
I can add on that one. We have done over 25 IBs in China where we took over office buildings and apartments and retrofitted them in 6 months. And this is where your brand needs to be smart. You sell the experience, not the size. So you get in, you have wider corridors, you have different sizes of rooms, but the fit out reflects the experience that you're selling. And if you want a higher brand penetration into key location, this kind of method seems to be faster.
So you did all 25 hotels in 6 months?
No, I'm saying an average duration for a hotel.
I was just wondering when you slept. Because
no. This is 6 months for an average one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Prabhat?
I was just saying that I would support what Kingsley was saying. Even in India, the only way that we've actually been able to grow, especially in the bigger cities, is to adopt a very flexible approach. Because the Greenfield option is virtually ruled out in any of the larger cities in India. Because unless we got a location which could support maybe 400 to 500 rooms, I don't think the real estate cost would really work.
Justify.
So therefore, we've had to go into the top of malls. We've had to go in for mixed development. We've had to pick up existing properties and convert them, leases, buying, all kinds of models. That's the only way it has worked, including looking at buildings which were originally built for commercial purposes. And we got them converted into hotels, which was quite a nightmare, both from the perspective of getting clearances, how difficult they can be in India, as well as completely building in shafts into a building structure which had no shafts to start with, because it was a commercial building, so they just had some connections in the corner of the building. But that's the only way to grow. However, we've tried to, as Kingsley mentioned, we've tried to keep very close to the concept. So irrespective of where the customer is walking into, whether it is on top of the mall or a mixed development or a greenfield, the experience is very similar. The look and feel, the services, the amenities are very similar, including the size of the rooms, which has actually meant that we had to look at many more options before we found one that worked for us. So it just means that you have to work much harder to make that happen.
So, moving on from actually getting this right site and hopefully the right owner, creating this relationship with the owner, one of the things that we always come up with is, because it's a sort of economy budget hotel, it has to be the right site, close to public transport, fairly central to CBD, or at least accessible to CBD, accessible from the main transport hubs. Put all that together, it's not a cheap site, right? So you'll have owners say, why should I build, at least in days gone by, maybe not so much now, a lesser hotel? I want to put it up there, higher brand in the family, as high as possible. How do you deal with that? Because, we are all working in markets where maybe not so much in Singapore and some of the other mature markets, but largely owners are driven by social status, ego. How do you deal with that?
Well, maybe I will start first. Today, to convince owner to develop a budget, I'm talking for Indonesia again because it's different. It's not a big issue because it's the trend, it's a fashion. It will be maybe the opposite way, because I say sometimes you have a prime location, it's a pity than to make a budget hotel. You can do much higher. So today we are more on the opposite way. For Indonesia, with the trend is so much to make an economic budget hotel, my attitude sometimes will be opposite way. Say, no, I think this location, you better not make a budget hotel. That is number one. The second challenge, this challenge, yes, it was existing maybe 10 years ago in Indonesia when I was with my previous Accor, when I had to develop the first Ibis in Indonesia. That was a challenge. Because in 95, wow, 18 square meters the rooms, everybody was looking and dreaming of a Sheraton and all this. That was a challenge, okay? And, but today, the challenge would be the opposite way. So cool down on the budget hotel and maybe you better develop with the land value. It's maybe much more worthwhile to make a 4-star hotel, okay? And, financially struggling different way. I mean, it's more the opposite way. The other challenge I will have on my case, it's sometime also for Indonesia, it's, you need to get a vision. And there's many places in Indonesia which have the vision, we should develop an hotel this place. And in Indonesia, sometimes you develop an hotel, then everybody will develop the hotel on the same place. Okay?
Right.
Copy paste everybody. And you have to open new markets. And sometimes I smell some location, maybe 5 years in advance, you should develop the hotel this place. Okay? But it's too far away, it's this, but you have to build an hotel, not for today, you have to build a hotel for the next 10 years. That is a difficulty to convince owner, don't look today, maybe the street is dirty, okay? But in 3-4 years, the road will be extended and you'll be on the right location. So that is the biggest challenge, is to make the owner, don't think today, build your hotel for the next 10 years. So there is some location who looks prime today, but it will be out of the picture in 5 years, or oversupply and all this. But there's location, I get a few cases I want to mention in Indonesia, it's spending me years to convince the owner, do it now. And it's so difficult to convince to do it now. And then when they realize it, it's too late. Now everybody coming up. So sometimes it's just to push the owner, don't look today, look in 5 years, 10 years. That is the biggest challenge to convince. Doesn't matter if it's budget, economy, or mid-scale.
Yeah, but I think a lot of owners have started to, just like economy, budget hotels are the buzzword, mixed use development is the other big word. You're essentially utilizing the same site to do various things, hedging your hotel product. In some cases, yesterday we said at the higher end, people are talking about, residences or branded residences and selling them, etc. From an operator or owner perspective, what would you prefer? A standalone economy hotel or a mixed use development? Kingsley?
You see, for any investment, it has to work, right? So we have done everything. We've done combos, what we call an Ibis and an Novotel together, which is actually very good. In fact, we've even demonstrated you save 10% of the built-up area, which is all translated to investment cost. And in hot location, it's a pity that you use the ground floor for hotel. You need to give it to retail. If you want the investment to work and get your returns right. So we did in Hong Kong, we just opened 2 months ago, 600 room Ibis. The complete lower floor is retail and the Ibis is on the top. And you demonstrate to an owner an Ibis versus a Sofitel or a Pullman, the rate of return per square feet is totally different. Ibis makes more money. And you can demonstrate that by the number of rooms you get in, the squeezed back of the house area, the squeezed staff ratios, which Marc set the standards for us. Those things makes money. So if you can make an owner feel that you have a combination of hotel, office, retail, hotel, we have done all actually. From a design point of view, it's just a transfer flow. Otherwise, we have standard designs, and you can do resi and hotel in some case, where the owner can strata the resi separately, sell them up. You just have a design in such a way that you have separate access. The hotel don't see them, but you can still service through the service elevators. So you have like 7 options for an owner to think and identify what is the best way for him and to have his face.
Simon?
I think we have to be flexible. It's no question about it. And our experienced hotel operators is no different to like a developer in a sense. At the end of the day, you got to understand the economic drivers of a particular development. And I do agree with what Kingsley and Marc and say. You need to understand the motivation of the developer in a sense. If you don't understand the drivers of the developer, you basically don't understand what he's trying to achieve. And different country, as Staywell cover a whole range of countries, from Australia to China to Singapore to Dubai, to Morocco to London. So, I met with many developers and they got different, motivation in a sense. So, institutional investors and people want return on investment. Of course, they want to maximize their floor space. They want to make sure that if they got a well-located hotel, they want to make sure that every square meters is achieving the best return. I mean, we heard Rico yesterday from Sun Hung Kai, right? He's probably getting a better return from his Holiday Inn Express, in Times Square, but he had to put a Four Seasons in Central because I'm sure his motivation is to maximize per square meter return from the retail that he had in the center of Hong Kong. You can't really put a sort of economy hotel. It may not project the image of a 5-star brand. So I think, people like us as hoteliers and operators, been dealing with developments. We are actually like developer these days. The first thing we need to understand whether we look at the site, whether we look at the orientation of the site, the traffic of the site, the size of the land, the control restriction, for the first few weeks, we are working like a developer, try to maximize the return and income per square foot in a sense and squeeze every inch for each room.
Yeah. So very quickly, we'll get a comment in from Marc and Prabhat because that thing is flashing at me and it's not nice. So very
Just
quickly.
with that, I just want to confirm. We have to forget to be hotelier at the beginning. We have to be first a developer.
Yeah.
And how to get the best out of the land. That is it. If you think too much hotelier, my brand is, it will pollute our thinking. So number one is to be developer and read to put how to get the best out of the land according to locations, market analysis. That has to be the main focus. And as Kingsley mentioned, it's also to be totally flexible. The budget hotel, the lobby can be on the 15th floor. We're making one in Jakarta. I think our lobby will be on the 12th floor. So, but it's combined because all the base is retail and all this. And also many combo. Okay. We have 10 combo with Aris and Pop in Indonesia because the Pop no facility and we use all the facility of the Aris. I mean, the leverage is a maximum for the land. So
What?
There's an added angle that many times the mixed development also has great value for the guest. We've seen that in mall locations, the guest has added options of entertainment, which we are unable to provide in the hotel, and that's a gain.
Right.
Similarly, it can also be a source of business. One of our hotels in Chennai, we are on top of a research park, just one floor, 85 rooms, and about 30% of the rooms today come from the 10 other floors in the building because they see great value in our being there.
Right.
So I think it's also got to be seen from the guest point of view. The mixed development also works quite well if you've chosen the right location.
We have about 1.5 minutes, so we're going to do a quick rapid fire. I'm sure there'll be questions. Kingsley, owner operator or only operator?
Both.
No, one of the two.
Yeah, unfortunately, both.
No. Moving forward, owner operator in the economy space. Owner operator or operator?
Operator.
Marc.
I will believe more owners.
Okay. Simon.
Owner.
Prabhat, you have no choice. You're an owner, right? When you select a site, right? Location or price? Location or price? What would you consider more?
Location.
Marc?
See, location, but I said number one is the owner.
No, that's fine.
own the location?
No, that's fine.
Location.
Location.
So you gentlemen are willing to pay premiums for sites which are great to build your economy hotels as long as the owner is right. Yeah? All right. Do we have any questions out there? I was almost getting worried. Thank you so much.
This is a question for, I guess, everyone in the panel. But by the nature of economy hotels and the fact that we're leveraging supporting infrastructure and the fact that we don't have generally restaurants and a number of facilities in the hotels, Marc, I know you spoke about having a vision, and really it is about micro-location, not just location, but really that supporting infrastructure around you. in new markets like Indonesia and India, where we are betting on that infrastructure and the supporting environment coming into play over those years, how do you kind of reduce, what's the risk mitigation strategy? And have you had examples where you've built a hotel and the supporting infrastructure has not actually materialized?
Maybe I go first. So yes, there is some location in suburb of the city. There is no facilities, and we will develop a budget hotel. Then I would strongly recommend the owner to develop a 7-Eleven, a Quick Buy, the Starbucks, what else, and I will make sure from the beginning. Then we will develop both. That is very important. Very important. We won't manage sublease; it doesn't matter, but we need to have a minimum mixed, okay, on the site. Mainly when you're in the suburb of Jakarta, there is nothing around. You have to create a minimum life around you. That is very important.
In India, we've learned from our experience that you have to have a restaurant within the hotel. And this is not only for breakfast, it's also for other meals. In fact, we moved a step further and we've also got a coffee shop in. Small, minimal, but takes care of some of the guests who arrive very late in the night. We have a lot of IT professionals who are guests for us, and many of them do land up late. However, we've run both of these using the outsource model. So we've tied up with reasonably well-known brands and they operated for us, while we certainly don't get the same returns as we would from the rooms, but it's a very necessary part and it takes care of the risk element that you talked about.
Any more questions? Sorry, we'll come back to you, sir. I think the mic's still coming along to you. Please.
Okay. In selecting a location, I just want to hear from the panelists whether you take into consideration their competitor from your own brand. Why I'm asking this question? Because based on my experience, when the hotel already in operation, we are asking the GM, for example, to increase the room charge, and the answer will be, oh, if you increase the room charge, the rate will be too close to the, for example, the next category of the hotels of your own brand. What do you think about that?
I think that this one is for Kingsley.
Well, I will back you up after. Okay. So, yes, the number one, if I well understood, if you compete with your own brand, right? So, number one, we have to avoid to put two hotels just nearby, but it depends again, cities, everything, size of the city and complexity, yeah, on the same market segment. That is number one. If it's happened, okay, it's very important, and not one of them is lower rate than the other one. If it's the same, for example, if I take a pub, it's two pubs just nearby. What I mean nearby is very important is very subjective. Huh? If it's Jakarta, 1 kilometer, it might look nearby, but it's already far away because traffic, it will take you 1 hour. So that I don't consider. If I take a third city in Indonesia, it's the time. It's not anymore the kilometer. If it takes you 5 minutes to go to the next pub, that I have a problem. But if worse is happened, the rate has to be exactly the same. But again, nearby is very subjective. Huh? Jakarta, if I take maybe 500 meters, 1 kilometer, it can take you with the macet, the traffic jam, maybe 1 hour. And it's dependent, if you take in Kuningan or Sudirman, it's already different market segments. So it's, when a big city is much more detailed and complex, okay? So a big city, you can have maybe on one brand, maybe 50, 100 hotels on the same brand. So, and then the price, we might vary a bit because one, you're nearby a shopping mall and the other one is an office building. It might affect a bit your rate. So on a big city, it's very sensitive, but if really exactly the same place, has to be the same rate. If I answer, maybe.
It's not always optimum, to have one brand and then have the next one 200 meters next to each other. It is a difficult situation. I think we need to help both the hotels to lift the rate using your revenue management skill. You see, revenue management, you can really do wonders if you really apply it, analyze the history, forecast it, understand the peak events that's taking place. The revenue manager of that region plays a key role in making sure both benefits. That would be the way I'd handle it.
If I understand,
actually, I'm not talking about the same company with different multiple brands. I'm talking, for example, we want to build that budget hotel, but not too far from that, we already have 3-star hotel, but with the same hotel operator. In that case, if we raise the room charge of the budget hotel, and it will be too close to the 3-star hotel your own, with your own brand.
Can I just
Yes,
can I
please.
just take that? Because I think from what we're seeing, and if I understand your question correctly, what we're seeing is if you're in a micro market, right, and you're getting the budget hotel to up the rates, there's normally a tendency that the whole market has gone up. So the upper end of that brand will also move up. In case it's not, right? I mean, I've seen examples where the economy hotel is doing better RevPARs than some of the higher brands in micro markets, and that's just the way the market is. So I guess you'll have to play it by depending on what market you're in and how sort of open-minded your operators are. We have one last question. No? Right.
Sometimes hotels in the same families, let's say a Starwood, your Sheraton 4 Point would probably be doing a better average rate than the full service Sheraton, which is just a kilometer down the road or half a kilometer down the road in the same city. So I don't think anybody has got a resistance to the upward push or whatever. I mean, that's what.
Just a question that on the mall, building hotels inside or on top of malls, and then Kingsley said that you sell retail. It's very effective, both in China and in India. China, of course, by 1,000 kilometers ahead, they're building about 24 million square meters. I'm just trying to get the zeros right. Well, that's ready, and they're building 18 million more, as per something I read. India is very close. We are building giant malls in small cities, small towns, with a population base that even on the map never existed except as a kind of driveway past a highway. And we see a 400,000 square foot mall. The issue I have, Prabhat, that we as economy hotels would find it quite easy to get inside the malls. Mall owners never complete the malls. Most of the malls are dark, half dark, quarter dark. And my question to my key man who's sitting next to me is always, how much has he sold? And the question I always get answered very easily is 32%. I said, are they signed or will they be operative before our lights go on? I just wanted your view on that.
Sure. If I'd said a little while earlier that the critical part is that the mall needs to be in the location that you're already focused upon. I mean, just because you're getting a good deal 3 kilometers down the road, I would never get tempted. So assuming that the mall is in the right location, obviously you need to use the same filters as you would use somewhere else. So we would never look at a mall which is, which is not with a reputed party who's got a history of delivery. And quite often, in fact, a couple of the malls where we have got it right, we've not even gone in right in the beginning because the mall was kind of built in two parts. So we only went in the second part, but we worked that option out a little earlier. But we said, let's wait and watch. And once we saw that the first part worked well, and therefore there were a fairly good chance that the extension would work equally well, we went in there. So the filters have got to be even more stringent than what you would do. That's right.
I just want to add a couple of that because we also got a couple of economy hotel in India is in more and obviously I don't know India as well as you guys, but we have a economy brand in Raipur and Indore with a mall operator right next to a mall. So if you believe the mall is a demand generator for that hotel, then it's absolutely critical that the completion of the mall is linked to the hotel. But if you don't think the mall is a demand generator, then maybe a bit more relaxed. So if the whole development is depending on the mall traffic and so forth, then absolutely, you got to make sure the mall finish first before you start spending your money on it.
I think, given the experience on the panel, we can go on all day, but we don't have all day. We've already overshot our time. So I think the key takeaways are must have the right site, must be at the right location, must be with the right owner, flexible on whether mixed use or independent, willing to pay a premium if it's the right site. With that, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being a patient audience.